Jasmine and her family had just moved to a new city because her father, Michael, had landed his dream job, a leadership role at a prestigious company. Although Michael was thrilled about the career opportunity, he was deeply aware of the challenges his family, particularly Jasmine, might face. He spent days encouraging her, saying, "This move is for the better. You'll grow, learn, and show the world who you really are." As Jasmine walked through the vast, unfamiliar corridors of her new school, a mixture of apprehension and determination weighed on her shoulders. The smell of fresh notebooks and distant laughter of students reminded her how far away she felt from the comfort of her previous school. Some students gave her quick glances, while others pretended not to notice her. At times, she even heard faint whispers. Her first meeting with her homeroom teacher, Mrs. Grace, didn't alleviate her worries. The woman greeted Jasmine politely but with a certain coldness that Jasmine could feel. "I trust you'll adjust quickly to our standards here," Mrs. Grace said with an almost clinical tone. Jasmine wanted to believe her words were well-meaning but couldn't shake the sense of being judged. Jasmine's first day passed in a haze of observations and quiet struggles. She listened attentively in class but couldn't ignore the covert stares and whispers of her peers. In the lunchroom, she plucked up the courage to approach a group of students chatting animatedly. "Hi, I'm Jasmine. I'm new here," she said with an eager smile. One girl turned to her briefly and replied, "Hi," but quickly resumed her conversation as though Jasmine hadn't been there. That evening at home, Jasmine faced her parents' hopeful gazes. Michael asked, "How was your date? Did you make any friends?" Jasmine hesitated before replying. It was okay, not wanting to dampen their spirits. Her mother, Sarah, observed her quietness but refrained from probing, instead saying softly, "Give it time. Everything will fall into place." Later that night, Michael entered Jasmine's room, where she was curled up reading a book. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder and said, "I know moving is tough. When I started my new job, it felt like stepping into a storm. But storms don't last forever, they pass, and we emerge stronger. You'll find your footing. Jasmine, I believe in you." His words eased the weight on her heart, but she knew the road ahead would be long. Weeks passed, and Jasmine tried her best to integrate into the school environment. However, her efforts often felt futile. Most students kept their distance, and Mrs. Grace's attitude toward Jasmine grew increasingly critical. The teacher's subtle comments during class made Jasmine feel as though she were under constant scrutiny. One chilly morning, Jasmine walked to school with a knot in her stomach. She couldn't forget the previous day's humiliation when Mrs. Grace had openly criticized her. "Maybe if you listened better, you wouldn't struggle so much," Mrs. Grace had said in front of the class, prompting chuckles from a few students. Jasmine felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment but forced herself to remain composed. On this particular day, Mrs. Grace decided to call Jasmine to the blackboard during math class. The assignment was unfamiliar. It covered material Jasmine hadn't learned at her previous school due to differences in curriculum. She glanced at the board, trying to make sense of the equations. Finally, Jasmine spoke, her voice steady but nervous. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Grace, but I haven't learned this topic yet." Mrs. Grace raised an eyebrow, her tone dripping with mockery. "Haven't learned? That's convenient," she said loudly, ensuring the entire class was attentive. "Is that your excuse for everything? At this school, we don't tolerate mediocrity. Perhaps you think you deserve special treatment because of your background." Jasmine froze as muted giggles filled the room. Her hands felt clammy as she clenched them tightly. Mrs. Grace's words echoed in her mind, stinging her deeply. Then, as though to cement her authority, the teacher picked up a cup of water from her desk. Jasmine barely had time to react before Mrs. Grace poured the water over her. "Maybe this will wake you up and help you realize you need to work harder to prove you belong here," Mrs. Grace declared. For a moment, the room was eerily silent. Some students stared wide-eyed while others avoided looking altogether, scared to intervene. Jasmine slowly wiped the water from her face and slumped back into her seat. Her uniform clung to her skin as she fought back tears, her spirit shaken. The door to the classroom swung open unexpectedly. Standing in the doorway was Michael, holding Jasmine's notebook, the one she had accidentally left at home. His eyes scanned the room, quickly piecing together the scene, the damp patches on Jasmine's uniform, her red and puffy eyes, and Mrs. Grace standing by her desk, the empty cup in her hand. Fury flashed across his face, but Michael contained it. "What is going on here?" he demanded, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable edge. Mrs. Grace hesitated, clearly caught off guard. Recovering quickly, she said, "This was simply an exercise in discipline, Mr. Robinson. Your daughter needs to understand the importance of academic rigor." Michael stepped forward, his piercing gaze fixed on her. "Discipline," he repeated coldly. "You did is humiliation, not education. You abused your authority in front of these children, and you think that's acceptable." Jasmine looked at her father, her eyes welling up with gratitude. For the first time since joining the school, she felt someone truly had her back. Jasmine looked at her father, her eyes welling up with gratitude. For the first time since joining the school, she felt someone truly had her back. The class remained silent, no one daring to break the tense atmosphere. Michael turned to his daughter, gently placing his jacket around her shoulders. "Let's go, Jasmine," he said firmly, his voice softening just for her. As they reached the doorway, Michael turned back to Mrs. Grace one last time. "This will not go unnoticed. You've crossed a line, and I won't let this stand." When Michael and Jasmine returned home, the house was silent, save for the faint sound of Jasmine's footsteps as she climbed the stairs to her room. Michael stood in the living room, staring at the notebook still clutched in his hand. He replayed the events at the school over and over in his mind. The image of his daughter's soaking uniform and downcast eyes ignited a fire in his chest. He placed the notebook down, sat at the dining table, and pulled out his phone. His next move was clear. He had to act. He began calling other parents in Jasmine's class, explaining the incident in calm but firm tones. "I need you to hear what happened today." He started with each conversation. "My daughter was publicly humiliated by her teacher. This isn't just about Jasmine, it's about every child who could face such treatment. We have to address this." The responses varied. Some parents were hesitant, wary of challenging the school or causing trouble. "I don't know, Michael," one mother said nervously. "Mrs. Grace has been strict, but she's also been at this school 4 years. Are you sure about this?" But others shared Michael's outrage. "That's unacceptable," another parent said firmly. "No child should go through that. Count me in." As the evening progressed, Michael received texts and calls from more parents, many expressing their support. "We've seen Mrs. Grace's behavior before," one father admitted. "She's crossed the line more than once, but nobody wanted to speak up. Maybe it's time someone did." The next day, Jasmine noticed a subtle shift in the school atmosphere. A few classmates approached her during lunch. One boy, who had remained silent during the incident, nervously said, "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for what happened yesterday. It wasn't fair." Another girl added, "If you need anything, let me know." That shouldn't have happened to you. Though these gestures were small, they warmed Jasmine's heart and made her feel less alone. Meanwhile, Michael's efforts culminated in a formal meeting with the school administration. The conference room was filled with a mix of parents, some of whom had initially been reluctant but now felt compelled to stand together. Students from Jasmine's class, emboldened by their parents' involvement, also attended to share their perspectives. Michael stood at the head of the room and began, his voice steady but passionate. "We send our children to school to learn, to grow, and to feel safe. Yesterday, my daughter experienced the opposite. She was humiliated by the very person entrusted to guide her. This isn't just about my family, it's about setting a precedent. No child should fear walking into their classroom." One by one, other parents and students voiced their concerns. Some shared their own stories of unfair treatment or incidents they had witnessed. "My son told me that he's been too scared to speak up in class because he's seen what happens when Mrs. Grace doesn't approve of someone," one mother said tearfully. "We can't let this continue." The school's principal, Mr. Carter, listened attentively, his expression serious. It was clear he hadn't anticipated the extent of the issue. "I understand your concerns," he said finally, looking directly at Michael. "This is not the environment we strive for at our school. I assure you that steps will be taken to address this situation and prevent anything like it from happening again." The sense of unity in the room was palpable. For the first time, Jasmine felt the weight of support, not only from her father but also from a broader community. The voices that had been silent for so long were now speaking up. ensuring that her experience would lead to meaningful change. After the meeting with the school administration, the atmosphere around the school shifted significantly. Jasmine felt that the weight she had been carrying was beginning to lift. Her classmates seemed more open, some offering small gestures of support that meant the world to her. A shy girl named Emily approached Jasmine after class and said, "You're really brave. If that had happened to me, I don't think I could have handled it like you did." Jasmine smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. The administration wasted no time implementing changes. Principal Carter introduced several reforms, including mandatory training sessions for all teachers to address bias and foster inclusivity. Posters promoting respect and equality appeared around the school, and a new policy was established encouraging students to speak up if they witnessed or experienced mistreatment. As for Mrs. Grace, she was formally reprimanded. Her apology to Jasmine during a special assembly seemed strained, yet it symbolized a crucial turning point. Jasmine accepted the apology with grace, understanding that real change often takes time and effort. More importantly, the school community recognized that her experience had sparked something meaningful, a collective acknowledgement that the old ways could no longer be tolerated. Weeks later, during a school-wide event celebrating diversity, Jasmine was invited to speak. She hesitated at first, but Michael encouraged her. "Your voice has power, Jasmine. You've already changed so much. Now it's time to inspire others." Standing on the stage, Jasmine took a deep breath and began, her voice steady and clear. "No one should ever feel like they don't belong," she said. "Every one of us has the right to be treated with respect, no matter where we come from or what we look like. I've learned that standing up isn't easy, but when we do it together, we can make a real difference." Her words echoed through the auditorium, met with enthusiastic applause. The changes didn't stop there. Jasmine's bravery had a ripple effect, inspiring both students and teachers to strive for a more supportive and equitable school environment. Over time, the school transformed into a place where diversity was not only accepted but celebrated. For Jasmine, the journey wasn't just about overcoming injustice, it was about growing stronger and realizing her own resilience. She knew she would carry these lessons with her wherever she went. Confident that her voice could create waves of change, justice had prevailed, and the school was now a place where every student could thrive.